The following is a World-Class Bullshitters exclusive.
The Disney District. Let me pull that article up real quick. But
there's the laugh.
It ain't Disney's district no more.
just Valiant, tell us what's up. Let me get a picture about Disney and their former district. So, please tell the audience what's up real quick for the 4 people that don't know.
Oh, holy hell. This has been just an absolute pleasure and a joy to cover for the last year. We've been pounding out the facts, the legal facts, the financial facts for almost a year now since this mess started. And, I mean, I don't usually come out and throw myself a parade, but my God, almost everybody else has been wrong about this. We've been right. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's been the reporting on this whole situation has been so bad across the board. And I'm talking about from some... God bless the Disney vloggers and the Disney folks out there. And I'm truly not picking on anybody in particular. And there have been some that have reported this accurately, don't get me wrong. But the vast majority of them have been dead wrong about this. You know, they are experts at telling you special park hours for Christmas and what they're serving at the Crystal Palace on a Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock. But my God, don't ever take legal advice and financial advice from these people. And that's just been that. We have been reporting since day one when all this started that, look, Disney got themselves into a kerfuffle with the Florida State Legislature and the governor's office when they decided that they were going to get involved in House Bill 1557, as people completely erroneously and falsely referred to as the Don't Say Gay bill. That effectively gave the Florida State Legislature and the governor's office finally, after 50 years of being overdue, 50-plus years, of having the political willpower to go ahead and re-examine the Reedy Creek Improvement District. Reedy Creek was formed in 1967 by a Florida legislative act. It was a gift, a compact with the Walt Disney Company at the time, and particularly based on Walt himself's dreams. Walt had a dream that he was going to build not only the Magic Kingdom in Orlando, Florida, but Walt wanted to build a massive, futuristic, amazing community, the most advanced, the cleanest, the safest, the most progressive community. And I don't mean progressive by today's political standards, mind you, but the most unique community on Earth. And he wanted to build it right there in Orlando near the Magic Kingdom. And the name of this city was to be the Experimental City of Tomorrow. And Walt died, unfortunately, towards the end of 1966, and the legislation passed a few months after his passing. Now, of course, legislation like that is years in the planning, years in the making. But the legislation passed, and at that point, the Walt Disney Company decided, after he passed, that, well, maybe we don't need to build a city. So in 1971, the Magic Kingdom opened. And then a few years later, Walt's Experimental City of Tomorrow was added onto it, although it wasn't really a city. And if you haven't figured out by now, the Experimental City of Tomorrow, what that actually boils down to is Epcot. Now, Epcot is still there, obviously, but it's not a city. It's not a functional city. There's no people living there. There's no schools. There's no this. There's no that. Now, over time, Disney put in the bare minimum effort. They put in a couple of cul-de-sacs and a few sub-cities inside the Reedy Creek District called Bay Lake and Lake Buena Vista. Combined total of about 20 mobile homes, 20 double-wides, okay, on a couple of cul-de-sacs. And a very, very poorly funded fire department. As we learned the other day during the press conference when the Professional Firefighters Association president, Mr. Shirley, John Shirley, came out and derided the Walt Disney Company, I mean, badly, and the Reedy Creek Improvement District, because most of the fire trucks that they have are in disrepair. If Disney World ever actually had a major problem, Disney was counting on Orange and Osceola counties to send in the troops because they can't take care of their own shit. In fact, the best fire truck in the Reedy Creek Improvement District is the one that Minnie Mouse rides through Epcot on some parades. So, that's kind of where that is. Now, what happened at this point was the Florida State Legislature decided that enough is enough. And you know what? Disney doesn't deserve all of these special privileges that they have. Ron DeSantis in his press conference brought up SeaWorld as a comparative metric. And people ask, well, why SeaWorld? Why not Universal? Well, SeaWorld was opened less than 2 years after Walt Disney World opened. SeaWorld opened in the summer of 1973. And it didn't have any of these special privileges that Disney has. And in fact, the special taxing district that the Walt Disney Company had, Reedy Creek, had far more power and far more autonomy. Think God mode cheat code in a video game. That's what Disney had in Reedy Creek. Nobody else in Florida. None of the other 1,700 special taxing districts in the state of Florida had anything like what the Walt Disney Company had. Most of the Florida state legislature didn't even know the amount of power that Disney had because the 1967 Pact was so old. And many of them were surprised to learn how bad it was. This is why we have folks on the channel like Andrew Esquire from Legal Mindset, because Andrew is an attorney from Florida originally. He now lives in South Korea, but originally from Florida. And his specialty in his legal practice was, guess what, folks? Creating and managing special tax districts in the state of Florida and issuing municipal bond debt. So there is no better expert to have on any YouTube channel anywhere on earth than Legal Mindset for this particular subject. And effectively what happened was, after all this went down, people made auspices about how this was a retaliation against Disney. This was a violation of First Amendment rights. That was immediately debunked on our channel. The Walt Disney Company, as people were trying to figure out, why didn't they fight this? Why didn't Disney come in? Why didn't Disney say anything? Very simple answer to that, folks. They have no legal standing. The Reedy Creek Improvement District was meant to be a separate, autonomous, completely legitimate taxing body that would be voted on by citizens of the experimental city of tomorrow that never came to pass. So if Disney were to actually jump in with both feet on the legal argument and try to fight this in court, number one, it would be thrown out on the fact that there is absolutely no legal standing for Disney to make an argument on First Amendment rights, because this had nothing to do with Disney, period. Legally had nothing to do with Disney. And secondly, if Disney wanted to jump in the fight, they would basically be admitting in open court that they were actually Reedy Creek, and that Reedy Creek was not an independent taxing district under its own auspices, and effectively that the 1967 Pact was defunct and that they were in violation of it. That's the bottom line. That's the reality of it. So Disney basically had to sit there and watch this happen, and pardon my French, take it up the ass. And that's exactly what happened. Disney had to take, that mouse had to take the whole dick. No Astroglide, and just sit there and smile, because there's nothing they could do at this point. What Ron DeSantis did effectively was to dissolve the entirety of Reedy Creek, even right down to the very name. And people cite the actual HB 9B, which is the actual bill that Ron DeSantis signed yesterday morning. And HB 9B, they look at the last page as a 191-page bill that was signed into law. They look at the last paragraph and they say, well, look, it says Reedy Creek shall not be dissolved. I'm like, yeah. In terms of legal language, that is what's in the bill. You are correct. But what you have to understand from a practical standpoint, the only thing about the 1967 compact between Florida and Reedy Creek that formed that district that didn't get dissolved was the geographic boundaries. Everything else from that 1967 deal is gone. They are now playing under the same rules of Section 189 and 190 of the Florida state statutes, which is what every other one of those 1,700 special taxing districts play under. Disney is now on a level playing field, and you can expect that, as Ron DeSantis pointed out yesterday in the press conference, they will no longer be exempt from regulatory scrutiny. They will no longer be exempt from Florida's sunshine laws. When Universal decides to build an ice cream stand, they have to go before a committee and announce it a year in advance and make all these planning meetings and all this kind of stuff and get approvals. Disney has to do none of that. They can do everything on their own. Up to this point, they've been able to do whatever they want. They could plan in secret, build whatever they wanted, and they've had absolutely no oversight to it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm a big fan of, yay, taxes, yay, government regulation. No. Don't get me wrong. The point is that Disney, regardless of what the legal and regulatory environment is in the state of Florida, Disney should have to play under the same umbrella, the same rules as Universal Studios, as SeaWorld, as Busch Gardens, as everybody else in the state up till just yesterday. For the last 50-some-odd years, they've never had to do this. And I promise you, this was all coming from a special legislative session in the state of Florida. The regular legislative session that's coming up here, and I think the next month is when it opens. When this bill that forms the new Central Florida Orlando Tourism Oversight Board, I think is what it's called, or very close. I might have screwed up the name a little bit there. But obviously, Ron DeSantis and the Florida legislature wanted to go so far to make sure that people understand, no, this is not the same Disney God Kingdom. We're going to even rip the damn name out the ground. That sign in front of the Reedy Creek board members building is getting ripped up next week. I mean, it's like they're going to make damn sure everybody knows, no. This is totally new. This is not the same thing. But there are going to be, I promise you, because they've already hinted at this, and they wouldn't be doing this if this wasn't happening. The state of Florida, the legislature, is going to pass a whole bevy of new taxes on that Orlando Central Orlando Tourism Oversight District, whatever it's called, which is effectively Disney World. There's going to be a whole new bevy of taxes passed on them to finally start paying for all of the roads between Orlando International Airport and Walt Disney World. How about Orlando Airport itself for improvements? Who's drawing in most of the crowd there? It's Disney, right? They've been insulated from having to pay for most of those infrastructure improvements outside of what was formerly called the Reedy Creek Improvement District up until yesterday. That's all over. It's changing now. And people that were worried about, oh, well, the bond debt's going to fall on our shoulders. No, it never was. We told you that. It's been codified in Florida state law for many, many decades. That could never happen. But they even put it in this bill just to make sure people understood, no, that's not going to happen. And the reason the state took it over, as Ron DeSantis pointed out yesterday in his meeting, was because, frankly, he doesn't trust the bunch of lefty, crazy wokies in Orange County in Florida. and that was it.